and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Julie Cole. Julie is an award-winning entrepreneur, a best-selling author, co-founder of Mabel's Labels, and a speaker. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Julie Cole.
Courtney, thank you so much for having me. I can feel your positivity already. This podcast is perfect for you.
Julie, thank you so much for those kind words. I am absolutely thrilled to have you on. Going through the research, you're an inspiration for women in general. I mean, you have 6 kids. You are running a business, co-founder of Mabel's Labels, as I had mentioned. You have awards, award-winning entrepreneur. I want to jump right into it and understand how you do it all. So, Julie, let's go ahead. Let's just start off with an introduction and a background of yourself.
You bet. Well, I always say before people get too excited, let's just wait and see how the 6 kids turn out before I'm that much inspo, before we give me too much credit.
No, you
I
just
know. They're a great bunch. They're a great bunch. So, my backstory is, so I started this company 22 years ago with 3 of their moms. One was my sister and 2 were friends from college. And it was a result of, I joke about, being a recovered lawyer. And I wanted to leave the traditional workforce because actually at the time my eldest child had been diagnosed with autism. He had just turned 3. So I wanted a little bit of flexibility that I thought entrepreneurship and not law could provide. So there was that. And then the other reason Mabel's Labels started was that we were young parents. We noticed there was a product missing from the market. So, parents were just using permanent marker to write their kids' names on all their belongings, and it looked messy and it didn't work and whatever. So we were feeling that. So it was the combination really of those 2 things why I left the traditional workforce and started Mabel's Labels with my pals. And that was 22 years ago. At the time, I had 3 kids, and then I went on to have 3 more. And it was busy times for sure, but it's been a hoot. Like they've as Mabel's Labels has grown, we outgrew my sister's basement, and we said buy a bigger house with a bigger basement, and she did. And then we landed in about 2007, 2008 into the production facility that we're in. And it's a 20,000 square foot facility that homes our production facility, our marketing team, our finance, IT, customer service. Everybody kind of lives there. And then we have a second production facility also in California. So it's been quite a ride, and seeing how things have evolved and grown, not only in the business, but my family. I've got my youngest kid is 16. So for anyone out there who's struggling with little kids, and people say bigger kids, bigger problems, I promise you it's way easier. Way easier. My tea is still hot. I didn't get up in the night once. I eat more than crusts for lunch. It's fantastic.
Julie, I just love your energy. I mean, really, you are the perfect guest for Plenty of Positivity. There is no doubt about it. But just as you are mentioning this incredible journey, I also want to mention that you started out of a basement for Mabel's Labels. And so I'm just curious, anybody who's starting a business or desires to start a business, what was that sense of belief or that vision that really kept you going through those early days?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think when you go into this, having a positive mindset definitely helps, but I think you can't romanticize it. And people tend to romanticize entrepreneurship, and they think it's going to be TED Talks and book deals. And it really looks like making labels in a basement till 2 a.m. and then getting up at 6 a.m. with the kids and doing the do. So I think, managing your expectations and even the expectations of your family. Like if you have a spouse and they think once the kids go to bed, it's going to be like, let's pour a glass of wine, catch up on our Netflix. Like that's not going to happen. You might not even be able to go on your family holiday. Like you might have to save money because you don't have a second salary coming in. So there's going to be a lot of shifts like that. So I think, if you go into it knowing what to expect, that's very helpful. And then also, I think, for me, Those early in the days in the basement, yeah, it was tough for sure. But also when we look back, and I think even at the time, and I think this is why I was able to enjoy my kids even when they're little, and I was able to enjoy the basement, was because I know these things don't last. So even in the moment of them, I really kind of savor it. And I think, you know, this is not something worth complaining about because it's going to be gone soon. And I just, for some reason, seem to always know how fast things would go. Like even when I had 6 kids who played ice hockey. So my Saturdays like were an 8 a.m. game, a 10 a.m. game, a 1 p.m. game, a 3 p.m. game. Like that was Saturdays. And I remember just being like, this is wild. But you know what? Now my Saturdays are completely empty and I can go to the gym and I can go on a hike or I can go to visit one of my kids at college or whatever. And even at the time, I just knew not to complain because that would pass. So I think kind of embracing where you are and knowing it's for a moment of time when it's starting to get you down and reminding yourself of that helps get you through. And I definitely think it was my mindset. I've always said that my perspective has always been my secret sauce, like being able to, not sweat the small stuff, being able to be like, is this the hill I really want to die on? No, it's probably not. There are very few hills I actually will die on. And, I always joke when people say, life gives you lemonades. I'm like, make a gin and tonic, right? So be able to have that attitude and carry that through. It's like, that's the only thing that I can control. So I control it.
Julie, your sense of humor. I mean, I'm like holding my smile back right now from just bursting out laughing. Like I love your perspective on life. And like you said, it's a dab of like uh being realistic,
Yeah.
but then at the same time enjoying it. And I keep speaking about this even as of recently, but enjoying the journey. It's not all about the destination. You said it in your introduction. It's not just about the big time, like speaking engagements and media and everything, but it's about the journey, how even you're personally growing as you go through this business, the grind, the sacrifice, enjoying your family during that time. Like you said, I mean, 6 kids, I'm sure they're growing up so incredibly fast. But enjoying the moment, being present. I keep talking about that too, being present in the moment. And so I have to mention, alongside Mabel's Labels, you also mentioned you are, quote, a recovering lawyer. So, my question for you is having that legal background, how has that influenced as you went on to co found Mabel's Labels, like building and scaling a startup?
For sure. And I think, when in that question, I think everybody needs to think about what they're bringing to the table, right? So there were times I was like, why did I go to law school and do all of that? It was so hard. And now I'm like changing diapers and making labels. What is going on? But, all of the things that we bring are impactful and helpful. So from a practical standpoint, I could help write a cease and desist letter. I could write a cease and desist letter. I could, spot when our copyright was being infringed. I could put together shareholders agreement. There were things that were helpful, but also the skills that you learned, your analytical skills, critical thinking, those sorts of things are helpful as well. And whether you did engineering or whether you did finance, whatever you do, don't ever think it's a waste because you are going to bring some skills and learnings from whatever you have done. And that will help you and that will elevate you and that will bring value. So never question that. I even think like with all these kids, I'm like, wow, good thing I went to law school. I can negotiate with terrorists now. Like, this is excellent.
Laugh. I mean, and I think, laughter really is part of life, right? I mean, I love people with a sense of humor that can laugh. I mean, when I reflect, even going through different journeys, I have the ability to laugh at myself, and boy, have I done it more than once. And so I think that's so important. And what you mentioned about going through life, that when you choose, say, like a specific major that you go into, but each step along the way on our journey, we learn so much. We learn about people, we learn through certain experiences. And it really does provide that wisdom that it's only when you look back and you connect the dots. I want to give credit to Steve Jobs, I think, who said that. But it's so true. When you look back, it's then you could say, wow, that legal background really did help me, you know?
Well, and the thing is too, like, and I say this to my kids, a couple of them are quite high strung, and I'm like, I don't know who raised you, because it wasn't me. They'll be like, well, I've got one, he's studying biochemistry. I haven't been able to help him with his homework since grade 4, but so he's doing biochemistry. He's like, but mom, should I be doing this? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But I'm like, buddy, just study what you like. Do you think that I thought I was going to be making labels when I was doing corporate law? Like, no, we don't even know what jobs are going to be out there. I think about all the hires we have at Mabel's Labels, like we have a full-time community manager. We have a digital ad strategist. We have an Amazon strategist. Like we have these full-time, that 10 years ago, these jobs didn't even exist. So if you just do what you love and enjoy learning, those are the things, like being a learner in life. Those are the things that are going to take you and bring you success wherever you go.
Love that you mentioned that, just continually learning. When you are done with formal education, whenever that may be, that you still continue to read articles, books, anything that's even within your interest. I even tell my students that is that, whether it's reading headlines or if it's reading something that you're passionate about, but becoming like expert in that, like know everything about it and stay up with it. So I love that you mentioned that. And speaking just about younger generations, I would love to understand, how do you maybe mentor emerging entrepreneurs while also being mindful of just changing adaptability, like in one's environment, and paying attention maybe to that younger generation if they have some advice as well?
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I do a lot of mentoring, and I gotta say, and I also do a lot of judging of like entrepreneur contests or like competitions or pitch competitions. And it's so funny because I do this one, it's a national award, and every year I do it, and it takes so much time, right? Because like there's a lot to read, and you want to make sure you give every applicant who's gotten that far enough of your attention. So you want to read their reference materials, their letters of reference, all of that. And every year I'm like, this is going to be the last year I agree to do this because it's so time consuming. And at the end of it, I'm exhausted and I'm like, I will definitely do this again because I learn as much from them as they get from me. And I find that with the mentor mentee relationships as well. It's just like a parent and child. Like I'm learning as much from my kids. My kids are keeping me up on stuff that I was like, I call them my tech support. When they go to summer camp, I'm like, oh crap, I'm losing my tech support. And you know what? I had my kid, my 19-year-old, I'm like, Jess, her name's Jessamy. I'm like, Jessamy, can you just review my Insta reel to make sure like it's good? And she's like, Mom, I'm not gentle parenting you with your social media anymore. Do it, hit publish, and be done. I'm like, okay, I can do this. Like, so it's so fun how you see like roles reverse and you get from each other. Like as I get to this age now, my kids are certain age and the people I mentor, it's more coaching, I'm not telling what to do. I'm not instructing. I'm coaching what I've learned and I'm listening to their perspective. And I think, people often wonder how, their kids hit the teen years and how do you stay close and it's like, you've got to listen, you've got to meet where they are. So I don't want to I don't try and drag my kids into the things that interest me. I let them drag me into what interests them. Yes, sometimes I have to watch them play Minecraft. Yes, sometimes I have to watch some stupid anime show I have no interest in watching, but it's something we do together and it's something we can communicate about. And there's lessons to be found in all of those. We can be watching something and I get the opportunity to be like, hey, what did you think of that character's response? I found it a little bit, that might be a chance to talk about consent. It might be a chance to talk about how we view women in business. There's lots of opportunities there and I'm there for it.
Love everything you said about that and specifically listening. Oh, wow. Today, Julie, as we know, notifications are going off, distractions. It just to pay attention to somebody. I really do think that that sense of connection can become so much stronger. Not having kids here, but one thing I can say is looking back, dad was so present. He was curious about how gymnastics practice was, how you were doing in school. And to your point, doing things, I mean, I can remember we'd always have to like compromise too. Like I didn't want to listen to certain music that he was listening to, but we would do that and vice versa. But it is, I think it really does. It's a great chance to bring, especially with family, to come together and to listen, to put off like all the technology. But as I say technology, and as you were mentioning with learning from youth too, we didn't grow up, even my generation, I believe if I remember correctly, Facebook was, it was starting in college, but even socially, a lot of people didn't like necessarily have it at the beginning. And so now even the students that I teach, I mean, they know it all. They grew up with this. They are growing up with this, right? So I think it's being mindful and being open that just because you reach certain points in your life that, hey, you could always be learning. And so I want to transition over. Big congratulations, best-selling author of the book, Like a Mother, Birthing Businesses, Babies, and Life Beyond Labels. So Julie, please explain to us that journey. Like what inspired you to start writing this book?
Yeah. So it was kind of on my to-do list for a while, but it was life was busy. I'm not gonna lie. It was hectic and fun, but I think I did what a lot of people did during COVID and lockdowns, which was particularly women were picking up side hustles and being like, "Oh, I've always been interested in this." Women were starting businesses like it was incredible. So for me at that time, because I'd been like, oh, I should write this book and writing. I am like writing. I am a writer. I was like one of those OG mom bloggers back in the day, and my undergrad was in English, so writing felt very natural to me. I've been published in many things, whatever, but a book felt a little bit intimidating because I'm used to writing things like 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 500 words, and then it's like this can be a little bit overwhelming, right? So the thing was, when it was like COVID, I had a couple kids at college who got sent home. I had a couple kids, and I've got one kid who's pretty neurospicy, and he's my youngest. And, so somebody had kind of had to be with him to keep him on task when like he was being schooled. But luckily, with everybody home, I like every kid was assigned to Finn for one subject, and like we worked it out. But because at that time, I wasn't going and speaking at conferences. I wasn't going to events. I wasn't going anywhere. I was like grounded, like we all were. And I thought, if I don't push out this book during this opportunity, I am never going to get this gift of time and being home ever again. So I thought, right, now's the time. And it was great. And it was great. It was more challenging than I thought it would be, actually. And I think because of that, I'm used to doing a certain amount of work, but I found a rhythm. And for me, I figured out that I can't write like beginning to end. I would have a topic and then I'd dump it in the Google Drive, and then I'd have another topic and I write about that and throw it. And then at the end, it was like putting my publisher help put like the puzzle piece together and connect the dots on it. So that worked for me. But people who are writing like have different ways of doing it. I've got friends who, are going to write an hour a day, good or bad. They're going to have fingertips on keyboard from 6 a.m. till 7 a.m. Or they'll meet with a group online and it's like accountability, basically. They all meet on Zoom and they don't talk, but their cameras are on and they type. And it's just to make sure, because being a solo entrepreneur, being a writer, doing anything kind of on your own, sometimes you need that little bit of an accountability piece if you find yourself letting yourself off the hook too much. So that's when those writing groups and things like that can come in handy. But everybody kind of finds their ways. Got through it, got it published. It did well, and it's just really full of my business hacks, the story. I'm a big storyteller. So my life hacks, parenting hacks, business hacks, all coming together. And it's a bit of fun. And it's an easy read, and there's good takeaways.
Oh, I love everything about this. So, accountability, but having that sense of support system to
Mm.
walk you through whatever journey it is. And, to be able to come out on the other side, I mean, just as we mentioned, best-selling author, but you've been on NBC, the Today Show, CNN, HLNs. And as far as articles, I just want to mention a couple: the Huffington Post, Working Mother magazine. I mean, extreme success. At the same time, as we know, when we are going through the journey, sometimes it's not always those highs, those excitement, events and everything. But sometimes it is about working through the difficult times, the challenges. So my question to you is, as you were going through this journey of creating Mabel's Labels, and before you would reach that success and in the spotlight, what were some times, like, how did you overcome some challenges? And maybe could you give us an example as to how you walked yourself, like, kind of through that with a positive attitude?
For sure, for sure. I think it's okay. And like, I'm not, and I know you're not either. I'm not one of these toxically positive people. Like, you know, I am a positive person and I will always see the glass half full. I am that guy. If somebody says something to me and it can be taken a negative way or positive way, I don't even need to process it. I know I'm going to take it the positive way because why not? Like, that's where I go. That's where I lean. And I think it's healthy and I think it's productive, and I have to be highly productive. But I think an example where I think things can be challenging when they don't go as planned. So my son gets an autism diagnosis. He's 3 years old, right? He was my firstborn. When I gave birth to Mac, I looked at this child and I was like, I did not know I could feel this way. Like, I love so many people, but this, I had no idea it existed. Now, look, not all moms are going to feel that way. Certainly not in the first year. Some of them are like, why? Why did I do this? That's totally normal too. Everybody has a different experience. My experience was love at first friggin' sight. And of course, you want everything to go and be perfect for your kids. So, knew something was up, got eventually the diagnosis. And I mean, I took him for testing because I knew stuff was up. But then, of course, when you get the diagnosis, my sister described it as, me having like that one day of like disbelief. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, can't it just be somatic, pragmatic disorder? Can't it just be something? And, because you don't have that crystal ball. And I'm like, you go through these things like, will he always live with me? Like, I love all my kids, but I do want an empty nest one day. Like, or will he? And social relationships are so important to me, but social stuff is hard for kiddos on spectrum. So is he going to be able to enjoy the thing, And so there's a whole thing that you go through. So I probably had a day of like disbelief, maybe another day of grief. And that's okay. It's okay to grieve that, you thought things were going to be a certain way. And then probably by day 3, I was like, right, what are we going to do about this? And that's when I went into action. And that's when I did all my reading and all my research, and everybody in the family had required reading. Everybody had to be trained on ABA. Everybody knew what behaviors we interrupted and redirected. Everybody knew, like, everybody was Team Mac. And that was just, and I mean, why not? Like, what other way do you want to do? Do you want to just go into denial and sob, cry and be like, or do you want to be like, I'm going to make my little Mac like the happiest little Mac he can be? And that's what we did. And, I'm really proud to say now he's in doing post-grad work. He traveled around Australia on his own. He has friends. He's going off to he's of course nerdy, but he's off like to a Fallout event in Vegas with a couple buddies. Like, it's awesome. I often say that, on my deathbed, I'll say he's my life's greatest achievement. The other 5 are okay.
Love it, Julie. But I love how you start this out with just that topic of, because it does get brought up, no doubt about it, but like toxic positivity. But it really is, it's so true of when you are going through any type of experience, whether it's career related or life related, I always think to myself that positivity really is a choice. But like you said, it's acknowledging just the realistic nature of life, that yes, it's not all, roses and everything, but that, you take those times that we could relate to one another with, the challenging times, the difficult times that arise, that literally, it's like a speed bump that you never expected coming, but how do you overcome that? And that's why I love discussing just one's journey, because you could see accolades, you could see titles and everything, but really, what was it like going through that journey? And how do you, because it's tough. It's tough when you're going through difficult times to find that silver lining, that sense of positivity. Like, how could I get to that positivity? And so I just love that you shared that and you were vulnerable to share that story, Julie. So thank you so
And
much for
thank
that.
you. Thank you. And I do think it's okay. And I don't think it's being not a positive person by giving yourself the grace to have a bit of grief and to take a little bit of time to process. That's just human. And that's not being a Debbie Downer. That's just life. And, be positive people are not saying that you can't do that. Right. But the thing too, I found, and one of my little rules that I talk about, like that it was training my brain. So one of the things I do is I don't complain. Like I don't just, and again, not toxic positivity. If I want to have a rant with a friend about something, I go ahead and do that. No problemo. But I'm just talking about that general complaining. And the reason I won't do it is for a couple things. One, it's not proactive. So, obviously I was a young mom who never slept. Like I literally, for 10 years, I slept for 2 hours, got up to somebody, slept for 3 hours, and that was it for 10 years. Right. So I never like saying I'm tired. Like I hear so many people like, I'm so tired. I'm like, what does that do for you? Like, does a bed magically appear? Does like somebody decide they're going to come spend the night and get up with your children? Like what, how does that complaining about, all it really does is make you boring to listen to. It makes you get into this like negative mindset and then you just feel sorry for yourself. So here's the thought. Um, if you're tired, make a plan. Like go to bed earlier, stop scrolling, tell your spouse to get up with the baby in the night, whatever. Stop complaining. Do something proactive about it. So, and the same with that busy thing. If I'm so busy, well, then cut something out. Like you're the author of this book, like say no to that stupid party you don't want to go to, set some boundaries, right? I actually have a 10-point checklist before I say yes to an event. I'm not kidding you, 10 points. Like if somebody's like, can you come to this brand event or can you come to this, I'll be like, let me think. Okay, or sorry, I can't, because you can't go to all the things and you can't be everywhere. But I know in my life and in my job, I have to be visible. So I do need to go to some things. And so I have to be very careful. Otherwise I will burn out and get, but so yeah, the complaining thing, there is a mindset thing. And I do challenge people, if you can go 24 hours and just catch yourself every time you go to complain and stop yourself, it does actually change the way your brain works. And that's nicer for you. And I can tell you it's nicer for everyone around you. It's so funny. I got a whiny friend and she's got these kids and they were really whiny kids. They're older now, but they're really whiny kids. And she was like, oh my God, my kids are so whiny. And I'm like, you think? Where do you think they got that from? This is a role modeling gig, this parenting thing, right? So, be the person that you want them to be. If you want complaining, whiny kids, then you be that guy. But I personally don't. So I wasn't that guy.
So true though. I mean, it really is like in life, you have a choice as far as even perspective, how you perceive a certain experience that you've had. And I think of every day, I've said this before, but as a gift, and I want to amplify that day. I want to be able to do as much as I can, whether it's helping people, getting better myself, like being a better version of me who I was yesterday, just yesterday. So no doubt about it. But I am so curious, Julie, about when we dive back into business with leadership lessons. You're a senior director. And when we look at the lessons during this journey, is there like maybe one particular leadership lesson that you have taken on with you from the beginning up until now?
I think there's a couple of things that, so when you start a company, one of the benefits of that is that you get to create a culture that you like, right? Like that you want. So you don't necessarily have to be like that 9 to 5, like, everybody's got to be there, bums and chairs, whatever. Because we knew when we started the company that we could be highly productive at really weird times and in weird places. So why not extend that? So we ended up doing what's called a ROW in the early days, called a results only work environment. So we were based on productivity. So people were judged and people were like based on what they got done, not how many times, how long they were sitting in their chair at the office. So I think that was good. I think it's good for retention. I think it's good for respect. And also when COVID hit and all these companies were scrambling, our people weren't, because they had laptops. They knew how to work at home. They knew how to work, do a meeting on Zoom. They knew how to do these things because we've been very kind of flexible that way. So that's one thing. I think another thing too that entrepreneurs generally have a hard time with is letting go. And I think a big lesson for leaders, particularly who start their own companies, is that you must let go. And for us, I know our first hires it wasn't hard. We were having people who were making the labels and shipping them out and that sort of thing. But when we got to like having to hire managers and kind of handing over some of the reins, like a lot of entrepreneurs can be kind of control freaks because it's our baby and we started it and we know best and blah, 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 ego, ego, ego. So when you bring a manager on and you have to let go of that, it can be a real challenge. But you must let go and you must let them learn. You can guide them and coach them, but you have to let them make mistakes, because if you don't and you micromanage them, then you're not doing your business any service, because you hired a manager because there was a gap. You couldn't do it, or you needed a skill set you didn't have. So if you're just trying to create new little Julies, then there's no point. The business is going to fail, and you're not going to have any retention. Nobody wants to be micromanaged by the owner of the business, right? So I think that's a really important lesson, is that you need to step away. If you're so busy working in the business, you're not working on the business. So let everybody else do their jobs so you can do your job. And I think also creating, like being a leader is about, creating other leaders. I'm running around I just had a 30-year-old message me say, Julie, when you come to the office on Monday, I need you to bring a sequin outfit, because we're getting you to do a reel about something. I'm like, okay, I just do as I'm told. These ones, they know the trends. They know what they want me to do. So listen to them, let them, our conversation about mentors, mentees, kids and parents, let people come in and do their job and respect them and create a culture of innovation, because the more innovative your company is, the better it is for your bottom line. So let people innovate. And if you let them innovate, then they're going to get this sense of entrepreneurialism. So that's being entrepreneurial in their job, which is also good for retention and your bottom line. So I think there's a long way to go in leadership. I think we're learning more and more that we don't need to lead like traditional men and traditional male workforces. We can have empathetic leadership. It's okay for leaders to have a teary over something. It's okay for introverted leaders. They bring a special, unique skill. Leaders don't all have to be big mouthpieces like me. Quiet leadership is really, really valuable. They bring some excellent skills to the table. So it's not a one size fits all with leadership. And I think we're learning that. And I think women might be just paving the way.
Excellent advice. I mean, I just loved everything about that. I love the fact of allowing others to even explore their creativity, being open-minded that you're right. Like once you've reached that top, being mindful of even those who are coming up, they know a lot about different trends. They know a lot about different patterns that are happening, whether it's social media, technology, but being
Right.
open-minded and continually learning, kind of drawing back to like one of our, first questions. So I love that. And Julie, I'm really curious, especially with young, with mothers in general, or even young entrepreneurs, like what is some advice that you could provide them that okay, maybe they're about to take that first step, but they're just a little bit nervous, a little bit self-doubt. How do you take that first step and move forward? Is there like a secret recipe that we could all hear?
Yeah, look, I think it goes with both motherhood and entrepreneurship. And I think there are many parallels between these two things. And I would say if you are going to launch a business on your own and be a solo entrepreneur, just like when you have a baby, that's you having the baby and bringing the baby home, it can be lonely. It can be lonely, and you can get in your head, and those brain gremlins can lie to you. They can tell you in both roles, you're not doing a good job. This isn't going to work. Somebody else is more qualified. You're going to fail. You don't know what you're doing, imposter syndrome, all that jazz. So I think motherhood or entrepreneurship, you need to get at a table. Your network is your net worth. You need to surround yourself with people who can provide guidance, you can share opinions with, who have gone through this before. So make sure back in the day, like, when we started, there was no Facebook groups or no podcast to listen to. Like, it was all like in person, and it was tough. But now we have resources. So make sure that you are connecting with people in both fronts, because what you might think is a big deal in your head and you build it up, there might be a simple solution that you're just not seeing because you're tired and you're in the thick of it and all of that. So just make sure that you're making use of having, get a mentor, get a coach, have a therapist, all the things, get all the things. And
It's
also know who's at your table. Like, I see that, especially with social media now, Courtney, like, people are scrolling and they're seeing things that are, living rent free in their brains that shouldn't be, that are making them. So you curate that list. You curate. If somebody makes you feel bad, you can unfollow, you can block. You don't have to let them in, like, I always quote Babe Ruth. He said, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. You don't need those people in the cheapest seats in your life, and that you don't need to be listening to them, and you don't need to be following them. Get rid of them. Curate your list to the people who are right for you and make you feel good about you.
I love everything you said about just even social media, how to utilize it, how to prioritize your time. And you're right, like to surround yourself by people who uplift you. Like, why would you want to be surrounded by people who are just like negative talk? And it's
Yeah.
constantly draining when you're trying to start something, when you're trying to do something that benefits the world in some capacity. Without a doubt, I 100% agree with you.
And it is
Especially.
tough though, Courtney. Like, I think about it, like I'm sure when you started new endeavors, I have too. And like, you do have naysayers. And sometimes it comes from a place of love. Like, I remember when we started Mabel's Labels, I had this old grandpa, Irish immigrants. So, he came over on the boat, 1950, worked at the steel mill, and then he pulled pints at night, and he was building the houses, and he was building dog houses to sell on the side because he was a welder, because he was always making money for stability. All he wanted was stability for his family. And so, my sister leaves a teaching job. I leave a launch, and my grandpa's losing his mind because he's like, you girls have jobs, and now you're going to make labels in Cynthia's basement. What is going on? You have stability. And, so you will get, and that can be cultural. It can be there can be even money things that come, like generational trauma around wealth or money or security. You get these wartime immigrants who are just like, we just want to be able to put food on the table. So it's very hard for them to understand when you step away from stability. So I think in those cases, we're like, grandpa, we get it, but we still have these qualifications if we need to go back to it. So sometimes it comes from a place of actual love and scariness, but sometimes it comes from a place of jealousy. Like, I have people who, and I mean, I have people who will like a post about my kids, but won't like a post that I won a big award. I mean, we all have those people. We see it. You just kind of go, that's a them problem. That's not a me problem. Right. So you just move on. But those are, I mean, you can distinguish the difference between the grandpas and the people who are just don't like people succeeding.
No,
And
that's
you just don't give them airtime, right? Like, who cares? Who cares?
I think that's so incredibly true, because I do think, especially when you take a more unconventional route, there's not like a blueprint for it. And for somebody who may come from that sense of desire, or that desire for stability,
Yes.
it's a little bit frightening to watch somebody do that. Or on the flip side, the naysayers, like, in my opinion, it's like really focusing on the people you would actually take advice from. Do you want to take
Right.
advice from people who are not even trying to do something that is like what you're doing? You know what I mean? And that yeah, you want people who have been there, done it, who are able to mentor you, and you trust. I just spoke about this, like to have trust in somebody that when they give you constructive feedback, that you could digest that. And that's for your own good, to become a better person, to become, for your business, a better business individual, like whatever it is. But I love that you mentioned that, like both sides of the aisle,
And I
the
do
jealous.
think what you're saying takes practice, right? Like, and I think
Yes.
it is, and I think because I've got a lot of friends who are like content creators and influencers and things, and it's the old story of they can get 1,000 comments saying, "Oh my God, you're the best. I love what you're doing." And one person will be like, "You're a big phony baloney." And you know who they're perseverating about? The one person who said you're a phony baloney. So it's like we need to train our minds and be like, okay, take a minute. Am I going to let that affect me or am I not going to? You're going to talk it through with somebody. You're going to do some breathing. You're going to do whatever you has to do. If you need to, you know what you can do? You can chuck a block. You can chuck a block at anyone you want. And if that makes you feel better, you go right ahead. You own your space, right? So this stuff all does take practice because people have different, there's a thick skin thing, right? And I think for you mentioning, consider the source of the feedback. Do I care what weirdo on Instagram thinks or do I care what my mother thinks, right? Like whose opinion really matters?
That's so true. And it reminds me, I feel like for your own perspective, when you know you're coming from that positive sense of intent and your family enjoys what you're doing, that you're trying to make something better. And if it's a product, of course, in entrepreneurship, it's making a consumer's life more effective, more efficient, then you know that you're not going to be liked by just everybody
Right.
in this world. And I think when you accept that, because you're right, I think it's so important that you reiterated that part of it's not always going to be about the positive comments, but there's sometimes going to be those negative comments. And how do you overcome that? Because it's easy to like talk like this, but you're right, when it does happen to you and you're
Yeah.
in that moment, how do
Sure.
you push forward? So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Julie.
Yeah,
That's
and it
huge.
does take like, and people have different, depending also, like we bring childhood stuff into this too. Like, people don't, I was just doing a Insta live with a really great parenting friend of mine, and we were talking about how, people talk about being raised in privilege around like say wealth and opportunity. And I said the very like least talked about privilege that kids are raised with is parents who can self-regulate, who are emotionally, can regulate, because that I feel like was the biggest gift my parents gave me. Like I felt heard, I felt valued, I felt listened to, I felt important. They never lashed out because they had the skill to be able to, if I was having a meltdown as a kid, to not have a meltdown themselves. And that is what raises emotionally intelligent people. And those are skills that, don't get enough credit.
Oh, 100%. I have been talking about emotional intelligence. There have been articles actually that have been published even recently speaking about the need for soft skills. And yes, we need the technical skills, but we also need those soft skills, the emotional regulation. You're right. Like even controlling your own emotions, but being also mindful of how you are coming across to other people in different environments. That could be workplace, that could be even at home, it could be any different environment. But I'm so happy that you mentioned and you kind of drove home emotional intelligence and emotional regulation, especially today in this world of technology, different modes of communication. I talk about it all the time, but that's so important to be able to connect with one another, whether that's interpersonally or just in general, our communication with one another. So I love this. I love this, Julie, where this is going. So my next question is if you could provide just one core message as far as the next generation of entrepreneurs, like, is there any type of just positive advice that you would be able to offer them from your experience of being a co-founder with Mabel's Labels?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, right? Like, I mean, it might even sound, I don't know if it's like, doesn't even sound that positive really, but really is just like, like just enjoy it. You're here for a good time, not a long time. Like, don't take yourself so seriously. Like, when we're running around making labels and, August, we're like, we got to get the labels out the door. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, we're not saving lives here. We're not pulling out defibrillators or doing CPR. We make labels. Like, let's keep it all in perspective here, right? And like, same with my kids. I'm like, okay, so he didn't get an A++ on his chemistry test. So what? Does it really, like, all these parents are hounding their kids for these marks? And I'm like, really, the best thing you could have them do is like, everybody wants their kids to be these superstars. I'm like, all you really want is a B student who gets invited to birthday parties. I can tell you that. You just want an average kid with good social skills who can get himself invited to birthday parties. That is the best you can get. And you don't want gifted. You don't want any of it. I'm telling you, this is my experience. But the other thing too, I think it's very important. And this is like more a life lesson. It's something my grandma, my old Irish grandma, who came out in 1950, on the boat. And she's one of 21 kids in Ireland. So yeah, my granny makes me look like a slacker. So she used to say to us, and it kept us very humble, but also made us realize that we can do anything. And she'd say, Julie, you're as good as the rest of them and better than none. And I think that's exactly right. I'm as good as the rest of them and better than none. So I can do anything I want, but remain humble because I'm no better. And it's 100% true.
I love everything about this. I mean, to your point, humility, I think really could take you such a long way in life. We talk about even whether it's like in career, but being humbled by the fact that we could always be learning something. And I just think that's so important in life. And it's not just even in workforce, but it's being mindful of like, we always could be growing throughout life. And you mentioned it before, but we're here for such a short period of time to enjoy life, to enjoy that. If it is that entrepreneurial journey, regardless of the outcome, what did you learn from that personal growth, even as you go through these experiences and processes, and, not taking yourself so serious. That's so true, Julie. Like, I know you just mentioned that, but like, it really is. I think it's being able to have fun. I mean, to be able for you to come on this podcast, I have been holding myself back sometimes, Julie, because I have been laughing so hard. Like but this is what I'm saying. You are so incredibly successful, but to have that sense of humor, it's such a fresh, like, breath of air today, to be able to laugh, to be able to enjoy yourself, and to witness, from my point of view, to witness that you're enjoying life. That's contagious. Like, I'm getting off of this podcast and I'm so excited. I'm energized with life. Like, it's exciting to watch somebody live out their passion. And
And
so
you know what? And that's a really good point too. Like, we are who we surround ourselves with. So if you have a Debbie Downer friend who makes you feel like I'm a big fan of the non-dramatic exit by Debbie Downer. Like, you don't have to make it a big thing. You don't have to announce it. You can just be like, yeah, I'm just not going to call back. Or you can say, look, set some boundaries, whatever. But yeah, we are like, we catch energy and we do feel, so just again, like, you are the company you keep. Make sure you're in the right rooms, and you just keep learning, and make sure that mindset, like you said, like your perceptions, and your attitude. Those are the only things in this crazy life you can control.
So true. So, Julie, as we round out this amazing podcast episode, I would love for you to provide our listeners, if it's a positive quote or a positive message of sorts for the community.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, good question. What have I got for you? I don't know. I just like, you know what? It's your journey. Just enjoy it. Comparison is the thief of joy. So don't be comparing yourself to how other people parent, how other people run their companies, learn, take what you want, leave what you don't. And just, it's like she steps off her path and found the right path for her. Just do what you do. You're the expert in your life. So listen to yourself. We've got guts. We've got instincts. They're there for a reason. Have a listen.
Julie, I love that, to end on that. And I just, I want to genuinely thank you for coming on to this podcast. Right from the beginning, before we even started the recording, you are such a compassionate person. You have been ultra successful, and you are an inspiration for women out there. I know we mentioned it, but, a mother of 6, successful co-founder of a business, to be able to have that positive mindset through everything, that is contagious. And that takes you far in life. And I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to be on this podcast. And I wish you the absolute best moving forward, Julie.
Thank you, Courtney. You're doing important work. Stick with it.
Thank you.